Hello everyone, I'm Soma Mazumdar.
And I'm Orod and welcome to Kanban Lab podcast. In each episode, we'll pick a common question and dive into a different aspect of Kanban, exploring its principles, practices, and applications, and answering that question.
Our goal in this podcast is to demystify Kanban and help listeners understand how it can benefit their teams and organizations through addressing the common misconceptions, clarifying concepts, and answering questions about Kanban. Morning, Orod.
Good morning, Soma. How are you today?
I'm doing good. What about you? How is Melbourne?
Oh, I'm great. Melbourne is nice and sunny and fresh. How's Sydney?
Sydney is also sunny today, unlike yesterday when it was
Mm-hmm.
raining. So, yep, it's a good day.
All right, that's good. So for today, I was talking to a few friends who are new to Kanban,
Mhm.
and they asked me if Kanban doesn't have anyone to actually, promote it or anyone who has experience with Kanban. So how
Mm.
we can actually write this policy um, within our team because we don't have enough experience and Kanban doesn't have anyone like Scrum Master to help us. So I thought that might be a good topic to talk.
Yeah, definitely. It's really a good one to definitely let people know that, like there are so many different ways to create policies and nothing is wrong or right. So let me share with you what I have found out. So my husband, who is a
Hmm.
developer, and he did go through the KMP, the Kanban Management Professional, and he has a development team. So how they did this. Now, they don't have any scrum master or anyone to guide them, so they are not doing like practicing scrum, but they are also not practicing all the principles or practices of Kanban. But he did like the idea of having policies in a team so that everyone can be on the same page. Now, why we need explicit policies, the reason is really the important one, to get people on the same page when you are working together, and everything needs to be explicit so that you don't waste time again and again to talk about them, and you can make decisions autonomously. So what he did is that he actually had a session with his development team, and he wanted to understand that, okay, where do they lag, or where do they, like, where is the delay when they are trying to make any decisions. So
Hmm.
that's how they try to come on the same page. They had different perspectives from different people, and they what they did is that they jot everything together and found out few points which they thought is really important for them to have an agreement on, and that will help them to create better flow in the system so that their decision
Hmm.
making is smooth. They can work autonomously, they are not dependent on each other all the time. So that's how they created their first policy. Now,
Awesome.
what
Yeah.
about you? Do you have any stories?
That's a really great experience that your husband had. And did you say he hasn't been in any Kanban training
No,
before?
he had been. So
Ah,
he
he'd
is
been.
also,
Okay.
yeah, Kanban
All
management
right.
professional. So he does understand the
Okay.
importance of having
Good.
Kanban practices.
That's it. So yeah, I think what he did is absolutely correct. But first of all, to me, when we want to introduce Kanban to a team or use Kanban principle or practices, probably someone heard Kanban. That's why they want to use Kanban.
Mm.
And team and organization can start with that person who had some idea about Kanban. Definitely, they need to be trained so they have better understanding about, more complex topic that Kanban talk about, but in a, very low mature team
Yes.
They can basically always back to why we need to do something. So
Mm.
why do we need policies?
Yep.
The purpose of having policy is to make sure that everyone in a team are on the same page. So to reduce the confusion and reduce the argument, and people ask the same question again and again and again. So to make sure it happens, we say, all right, you guys need to work together as a team. So
Mm.
sit and agree how you want to work together.
Yep.
And that will be your policy.
Mm.
When they practice it for a while, when they get better and better, they probably, face more problem, and then they can add to their policy or refine their existing policy, and then they can
Exactly.
focus on, the workflow and the optimization and bottleneck and this and that. But to start with, just keep things simple. Just think about what do you need to make sure these 5, 10, 20 people who works together are on the same page and they're clear about how they want to
Yeah.
work together.
Yes, that's a very good point. And it is again, yes, getting everyone on the same page is the actual purpose of having explicit policies. So policies are mainly helping you with decision making. So
Hmm.
let's say, like the definition of ready or entry criteria for any kind of work that's getting into your system. That should be part of your policy already. So that, any work that comes into the funnel, you know whether it is in a state of ready to start working on, or you need more information and you can ask or your customer for more information. So if you do not have that as one of your policy, what will happen is that there will be different kind of work coming into your system with different degree of readiness, and that will break the consistency, which will also impact the flow at a
Yeah.
later point. So why we need to have policies is because it will help you to make the right decision at the right time as a team. Again, as a team is the important part because you're not creating policies for your own self. It is always about, more than one or two individuals coming together and working together as a team, and they should have those policies which is
That's right.
common between
Yeah.
everyone so that they can be autonomous. And
Mm.
one of the things when I think about it, best way to create policies is always that what is the gap at the current system. So I always ask this, and I do use the word pain points because that kind of people can relate to. So if you do not have pain point in your current system, then you're perfect. There's nothing to
Hmm.
improve. So start there, that what's actually making your work life worse at the moment. Talk about that as a team. Come to an agreement that what are the 5 or 6 points you need to have as policies so that it helps you, and it helps you to manage the work better. So
Hmm.
when you start there, that is, I think that's a very good foundation to create policies. What do you think?
Yeah. You mentioned the pain point. I actually quite like it. Another thing is if they come and say there is no pain point, we are perfect,
Yeah.
then the next question is, all right, if there is no pain point, what do you think you can do to make your life better?
Exactly.
Right? So
Exactly.
maybe you're happy, but
Yeah.
is there anything else you can do to make it better? So you mentioned a really good point about writing the policies and focusing on the problem and see what we can do to resolve those problems as a team and
Mm.
reduce the confusion and make a quicker decision.
Yeah.
Another benefit of policy is, you won't be blocked by one or two people in the team.
Exactly.
If someone, leave the team, you always can refer back to the policy and say, okay, to start the development, we need to have these criteria because this is
Yes.
based on my experience. It's very common that something immature, the piece of work which is not discovered enough, we don't have enough
Mm.
requirement, team is not clear, kind of push to the team.
Yes.
And team normally doesn't have anything to negotiate with the business and they just accept it, and then in the middle of development they figure out that there are so many things is missing or
Yeah.
it's much more complex than they expected. Having this policy, it helps team
Yeah.
to have something to always negotiate with their customer and say, hey customer, if you expect me to deliver something to you when you expect
Mm.
it, then I also have some expectation from you
Exactly.
that you need to meet, right? So it's a
Yeah.
mutual contract between the
Yeah.
business and the
Yeah.
team who is going to fulfill the customer demands.
Yeah, that's a
So,
very good point. Or the expectations
mm,
one, really love it because expectations is two-way. It's never one way.
yeah.
So bang on.
So another thing I wanted to talk a little bit about it because the topic is how to write policy for team that new to Kanban.
Yep.
Sometimes I've noticed that team they sit together, they agreed how they want to work, and then
Mm.
they write a very long statement, right?
Yes. Yes.
It's very difficult to read, and
Yeah.
also when the statement is too long, then
Mm.
people come with different interpretation. Right?
Exactly.
So if we want to write a policy, I think the policy needs to be as clear as possible and as
Yes.
short as possible. So
Yes.
bullet point to me, it's the best way to write policy. If you want to include multiple things rather than put it into one statement, have
Mm.
multiple statements.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. I agree with you. It should be short and very precise and
Mhm.
clear. And because, again, coming back to the point which I keep talking about in every episode, is that in modern world, the world is like, in a nutshell. So we have team members coming from different background, different language, different culture. We might be interpreting things in different ways. So if you are trying to write your policies in a very big sentences, that might create more problems than any solution. So
Yeah.
make it clear.
It can cause more confusion.
Exactly, ambiguity is what you will be looking at. And also, when I think of policies, it's a tool for continuous improvement, because policies are not permanent.
Hmm.
Once you create it, you always have to review them. You cannot be like, okay, the policies are done. Now that is it. I'm not going to touch it for another 5 or 6 years. That will never help anyone. So once
Hmm.
you create the policies, it is a tool for continuous improvement. And how? Because it is helping you with your current pain points or current gaps. It is helping you to make your decisions faster. But once you have come to that point where these things are not your pain point anymore, you might have something else which you will discover along the way. And that is where you need to again review your policies and refine them, so that it helps you to continuously improve your journey, your flow, your work,
Yeah.
everything. So it's not permanent.
Yeah, that's again another really good point because when a group of people talk about something, there is always a chance that one or two people come and say, "No, we don't think this is the right approach."
Mm.
And what we can always use is, okay, this policy, as you said, it's not permanent.
Yes.
We majority of the team think that this is the right approach. Let's try and see what happens. If
Mm.
it doesn't work, next 2, 3 months, we come back and we refine it, and maybe we try your idea next time and see, your idea might work. So that also helps to, make sure the team agreed on the policy. Because if people not agreed, then
Mm.
they don't follow it, regardless if you make it explicit or not. People don't do it, right?
Yeah.
So the key is people agree and also make sure that we always come back and it's not
Yes.
a,
Yeah.
permanent solution.
Yeah. And also the people working together, as in like the team, they evolves when they start working together. They have better understanding.
That's
They
right.
can, come to that same understanding in a very small amount of time. Like if I take that example, when we both started recording this podcast, we were a newly formed team.
Hmm.
And if I compare that to now, we have much more understanding than what we used to have at that time. So
Yes.
that's also true, right? Like for every team, even though we are just, two people working together on this podcast, but we are a team. And this happens to, like, the complexity will increase when you have more number of people in a team. So think of the amount of time it will take for people to agree on to something.
Hmm.
So people will have disagreement, and that is okay. But these policies are here to help us to come to an agreement and come to the same page. And that is the reason you have to keep refining them. So if we go back to having our policies refined, it will be like a lot few than what we started with as a team, or isn't it?
Yeah,
Because we have a better understanding now. We have been working together on this podcast episodes from a long time. Now we know that, okay, if I have to say something, I know how Oro might, like, respond to that. Goes
that's right.
for me as well.
Yeah,
So this is the same thing which applies to any team working together, that these policies are here to help you with those kind of things when you are working together, so that
that's
you
right.
understand each other better. And when you do that, the flow is better. So you are
Exactly.
able to manage the work in a better way.
So people can't see, but I already shared my screen and I'm showing some of our policy that we start with and agreed before we start our podcast, Kanban Lab, the name, Kanban Lab, the name, the date, when we want to publish it, how often we want to publish it, how long each episode should be, how frequent we need to catch up, all those kind of things. So I already have them on our mural board. So in case if there is any confusion, we can come back to this one.
Yeah, that's right. Um,
All right. So I think now it's a good time to kind of wrap it up. So what is the takeaway for this episode? How,
the best way.
people,
Yeah,
especially in a new team,
yeah.
they can write policies.
So the first point that we discussed was that the best way to create policies is that start from the gaps or the
Mm-hmm,
pain points in the current system that you have. So
mm-hmm,
always start from your current scenario. And then the second point is that policies are not permanent. You have to
mm-hmm,
keep reviewing them.
mm-hmm,
So once you start working together and you have an explicit policy, you will find that the policies are changing as you grow and evolve together as a team. The third one is that policies needs to be that everyone can be on the same page. So the intention of having explicit policies is that it helps you to make decisions faster and quicker and get people on the same page. Policies are also a tool for continuous improvement. It
mm-hmm.
helps you to manage your work better. What did I miss?
Keep it simple and make sure
Yes.
everyone agreed. I think these two are quite also important. All
Yes.
right. Thanks, Soma, and thanks everyone for listening. Please let us know how you write your policy,
Mm.
and we come back next week.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. And thanks, Arun.